So Mania 41 was certainly one for the history books. And so let's dive into it here today on the April 21st, 2025 edition of Brandon's World. As always, we're in coverage with the one, the only Voltage Live. My social media links are in the description below. For the record, I am recording my recap of WrestleMania Saturday on Sunday, April 20th, Easter Sunday, and I'll be recording my recap of WrestleMania Sunday on Monday, April 21st, to make it easier for me to remember things, make it easier for me and my recording schedule as well. So if I look different, if I'm wearing two different shirts, obviously, if it looks like I am recording on two different days, I am. But that's why we're going to do this WrestleMania recap by going night by night this year. Let's start with my general thoughts on WrestleMania Saturday. Because in my opinion, from texting with friends, from reading the reaction on the interwebs, it was a have it at WrestleMania Saturday, where some people loved it, some people outside of the main event, which we'll get to here, hated it. I enjoyed it more than most. And I predicted the match card for WrestleMania Saturday, 1 through 7, straight down the card. I got 5 out of the 7 matches correct in my preview, though I technically got 6 out of 7. I'll go which one I had half and half right when it's time. But Jay and Gunther obviously kicked off for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was announced before, and it was a perfect way to start WrestleMania. Everybody eating. And I will say this about Allegiant Stadium. It looked different than SummerSlam. The fact that they had people on the second row of the stage, I thought was absolutely insane. I like the big stage. I like the doors opening up to the stage. The ramp to me wasn't as long as usual, which I kind of like. I'll never forget the WrestleMania 33 ramp, which was like yards and yards and yards uh, of ramp. But nonetheless, obviously, Jey Uso comes down for the crowd. The Las Vegas Raiders cheerleaders are behind him. Everybody's eating. Everybody's going crazy. Out comes the buzzkill, the ring general. And I was a little bit disappointed that they did not have Ludwig Kaiser. Give us all your gratitude for the ring general. Gunther here. But they started off very differently than the way I thought. Remember, I thought this match was going to be fast paced. They had already wrestled at Saturday Night's main event a few months prior, but instead they start this match off with a collar and elbow tie up, which I thought was an interesting approach. Gunther dominated the early part of this matchup, including a couple of T-Rex drop kicks. They had him hit a power bomb, followed up by a big splash from the top rope. They did this spot where Jey Uso was trying to dive to the outside with Gunther on the outside. The referee was distracted. Gunther was able to grab the world championship and hit Jey Uso in the skull with it, followed by that big splash that I mentioned earlier that Jey kicked out of. Gunther would then, as I mentioned, eventually hit a power bomb. Jey would be able to kick out. Gunther would lock in his patented sleeper hold on Jey. Jey was able to get to the ropes. But this match changed when Gunther would then go for another power bomb and Jey Uso turned it into another power bomb. And then this match kicked into second gear and it really became all of the Jey Uso and Gunther hits. Jey Uso would hit Gunther with chops. As I mentioned, Jey Uso hit Gunther with a power bomb. Jey Uso would hit Gunther with 3 straight splashes off the top rope. That was preceded by obviously those super kicks. And then in the end, Jey Uso would use Gunther's own sleeper hold against him, wrestle him down to the mat, and Gunther would quickly tap out. And then Jimmy Uso would out of the ring. We all remember Jay and Jimmy battling at WrestleMania 40. 1 year later, WrestleMania 41, here is Jimmy Uso in the ring celebrating the fact that the Big Uso main event Jey Uso is officially here. We have a new world heavyweight champion that we all predicted. Again, we just saw these two wrestle at Saturday Night's main event a couple months ago. So I thought it was a good match for what it was, and I was very surprised at the result. of Jey Uso making Gunther tap out. And now the question is for me, why Gunther has been a world champion for 85% of his time on the WWE roster. Where does he go from here? And I think it all obviously depends on what happens tonight, night two of the Undisputed WWE Championship match between Cody Rhodes and John Cena. Maybe does he go with Ludwig Kaiser and do a tag team up in the tag team division? Who knows? But a very interesting territory now for Gunther, whose reign ends at 258 days. And for Jey Uso, there is a new era on Raw, as for the first time since SummerSlam, we have a new world champion. And main event Jey Uso is now officially on his own. He is here. Speaking of the tag team division, then we have the Viking Raiders take on the New Day. They're all dressed up in their video game-esque costumes. And this match was really about the New Day. They started off hot, beating up Eric and Ivar kind of before the match even started with double teams. Eventually, the War Raiders would settle down and they would go for the War experience at the end of the match. Um, Obviously here with Ivar coming off the top rope. Kofi Kingston would pull him down, which would lead Xavier Woods to the up, down, down elbow, and then Kofi Kingston pulling Ivar's leg, holding it down, making sure he did not kick out of the finisher. And then New Day with no Biggie in sight. Biggie was working the countdown show earlier. He was working the post show, so certainly he could have appeared. WWE opted for him not to appear, and for this New Day turn that started in November to pay off here at WrestleMania. That was why they put this on the WrestleMania card. New Day becomes, for the first time, a team in WWE together holding a tag team championship for a record 12th time. This time, they did it by hook or by crook, but it validates their heel turn. And the question is, will they do something more with the World Tag Team Championship than what the War Raiders had done with it? They won it from the Judgment Day in December and did absolutely nothing with the tag team titles, as opposed to what's going on SmackDown, where obviously DIY, the Street Profits, Motor City Machine Guns will be in that triple threat TLC match on SmackDown this coming Friday. And I know that there's some thoughts out there, you know, um, as to why this match did not happen on the WrestleMania card. But in my opinion, I think they're going to save it more time for SmackDown and what those guys cook. And they really went for stories this year over match quality on this WrestleMania card, which is why Naomi and Jade Cargill, who had some cool spots, Naomi doing the face buster on the outside, then the reversal into a bulldog on the top rope. That power bomb by Jade Cargill out of that electric chair position was insane. And that followed up, obviously, by a jaded quick 1, 2, 3. Jade Cargill goes over on Naomi. Once again, a good but predictable match, in my opinion. But I think that it does set up a bigger storyline for what's to come tonight on WrestleMania Sunday. So this show, outside of the first match, obviously I thought matches 2 and 3 were the least important matches on this card. Crowd was a little bit quiet. And then Jacob Fatu and LA Knight for the United States Championship happened. And Solo Sikoa came out to the ring with Jacob Fatu, or came out to the stage, I should say. Then he went away from Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu wore a mask to the ring. LA Knight drove up to the ring on a car, which I guess you could consider a special entrance, though I don't really know. He mostly just rode to the ring. Um, but it was a very good match. They did the early BFT where Jacob Fatu did basically the Bray Wyatt handstand, staring at LA Knight, which really set the tone. From there, I thought LA Knight was a dead duck. And Jacob Fatu did mostly dominate the contest until he went for that springboard moonsault, and LA Knight caught him with a midair BFT, which completely turned the crowd around, completely turned the whole event around, in my opinion. It was nothing from up but there. At the end of the day, though, I did predict Solo Sikoa to cost Jacob Fatu the United States Championship, so I was wrong on that front. But I said I could see Jacob Fatu running through LA Knight and capturing the U.S. gold. That's what happened after two big moonsaults. Jacob Fatu is the United States champion. Jey Uso is the new World Heavyweight champion. And as they mentioned on commentary, the Hawaii family started off WrestleMania very strong. And Jacob Fatu is now overshadowing not only Solo Sikoa, but LA Knight and many other baby faces that he's worked with on the WWE main roster. I think this guy is going to be a future star, and the United States Championship is only a stepping stone. And whoever defeats Jacob Fatu for this United States Championship is going to get a massive pop because this man has yet to be pinned in WWE. Then we had El Dragon Americano take on Rey Fenix, who was replacing Rey Mysterio because Rey Mysterio got injured in the six-man tag team match on SmackDown the night prior. Listen, I said I didn't think WWE should have any wrestlers wrestling over the weekend, wrestle on SmackDown, even on Raw this past Monday. They have a bunch of guys who were in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, who obviously were not working WrestleMania. I just thought it was too big of a risk. Obviously, this is a high contact sport. You don't want your guys injured before the biggest show of the year. That's what happened, unfortunately, to Rey Mysterio. Rey Fenix and El Grande Americano put on a good match. The story was obviously the fact that El Dragon Americano put on that protective mask, the shield. And the match turned when Rey Fenix went for the bye bye amigo running kick on the apron, but he ended up kicking the big metal part of the mask, which then completely turned it around, allowed El Dragon Americano to then use the headbutt from the top rope to pin Rey Fenix. And my only wrong prediction of the entire WrestleMania Night 1 was that El Dragon Americano was not unmasked. I thought they were going to do this big storyline where it turns out that he is unmasked, but it's not Chad Gable. I think they got some legs running here that this angle is not going to drop at WrestleMania. Maybe the outcome would have been different if Rey Mysterio was in this spot because they didn't want to give the spot to Rey Fenix. Rey Fenix has been on the WWE main roster for 3 weeks. Uh, but I thought that it was a good showcase for both wrestlers. Then, if it wasn't for the main event, in my opinion, the match of the night was Tiffany and Charlotte. And some people hated this match. They thought it was sloppy. I thought it was just like their feud, man. It was a down and dirty fight. And the story really throughout this whole match was who was going to hit their moonsault first. They both kept countering it. And Tiffany Stratton to me was $1,000,000. She, you know, came across as gold. She wrestled her ass off. She fought everything Charlotte had to give. She attacked the knee. She withstood a top rope natural selection. She withstood a figure eight. And at the end of the day, Tiffany Stratton was able to hit the prettiest moonsault ever on the Queen when Charlotte went for a spear uh, into the second turnbuckle. There was a lot of near falls in this match. There was a lot of situations when I thought Charlotte Flair could have won the championship. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, WWE made the right decision. Tiffany Stratton goes over Queen over the Queen. It's the first time Charlotte Flair has lost a Queen match since losing the SmackDown Women's Championship to Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania 39 2 years ago. And Michael Cole said it on commentary, and I completely agree with him. Tiffany Stratton broke out. I thought, night one, right, was about the young stars mostly. Your Jey Usos, your Jade Cargirls, your Jacob Fatus. If you think Chad Gable is out Dragon Americano, go ahead. Your Rey Phoenixes, your Tiffany Strattons going over, and really that is the new generation of WWE. Um, and then we get to the 5-star classic. And once again, I would like to say that I called it, baby. I said when Paul Heyman said that Seth Rollins owed him a favor, the fix was in. And this match was all sorts of cinema, including Seth Rollins coming out in black to start, then turning to white. The OTC getting the long entrance down the ramp, and everybody in Las Vegas acknowledging their tribal chief. And then you have the video package with CM Punk, the This Fire Burns, leading the Living Color, playing Ultra Personality, Paul Heyman walking with him down the aisle for the main event of WrestleMania 41. This had big fight feel all over it. And I loved the way they started this match. CM Punk ducking outside the ring, talking strategy with his best friend Paul Heyman. Seth Rollins trying to convince Roman Reigns to team together to get rid of the greater good in CM Punk. And yet Roman Reigns able to punch Seth Rollins right in the face. And from there, the match was on. And they didn't use a ton of weapons in this match besides when they went in the crowd and Rollins and Punk were brawling in the crowd. You know, they used a real garbage can from the event. They used a fake garbage can, including a suplex there on the garbage can. Made their way back to ringside. Roman Reigns diving for the crowd, even taking out members of the WWE Universe. Roman using the prime bottle on Seth Rollins. Then it turned into a massive brawl again. Multiple finishers from each side. Everybody hit a spear, a GTS, an anaconda vice, a stomp. The first real good near fall of the matchup was when Punk was laid out. Roman ends up going for a spear on Seth. Seth does the spear and a pedigree counter, which I always thought was the greatest reversal in the history of this great sport, as the ring general would say. Followed into a stop by Rollins. He would eliminate Punk from the match. 1, 2, kick out at 2. From there, then it was time for Roman Reigns to get the spotlight, who, after Seth Rollins tried to convince Roman Reigns that they needed to do the Shield Powerbomb on CM Punk once the announce tables got taken off, Roman Reigns would bitch slap Seth Rollins and then powerbomb CM Punk and Seth Rollins for both the Spanish and the regular announce table. The first time since the reinforced announce table was created that it got destroyed, which I always predicted would happen. I thought it was going to be a massive moment, and it was. I love the spot where, Punk would hit the go to sleep on Rollins. Reigns would hit the spear on Punk, and then Rollins would hit the stomp on Reigns. Again, Roman Reigns kicked out. Everybody just had incredible moments where they thought they were going to win. Everybody was throwing bombs at each other, where eventually Paul Heyman grabbed a chair. And at that moment, I said, "It's coming." He is not. I thought he was going to give the chair to Seth, and that's how they were going to do it. But instead, he gives the chair to Punk. A distraught Roman Reigns is pissed off, and when Paul Heyman gets in the ring, which he rarely ever does, you're going, what the hell is he doing? And then he low blows the Second City Saints. He tells Roman Reigns, "I love you, my trouble chief. I acknowledge you, my trouble chief." But we all knew what was happening. And Seth Rollins was standing up, Roman Reigns with that chair in the back, trying to prevent the Shield from 10 years ago. Another revenge spot for Roman Reigns. Oh, the low blow from Roman Reigns, his wise man. And as Michael Cole so elegantly put it on commentary, Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman didn't even have to make eye contact. The fix was in all along. Rollins grabs the chair, one shot to Reigns, followed by a stomp. 1, 2, 3. And the crowd is serenading in Seth Rollins as I think the end of the visionary character for Seth Rollins. Now we'll see if it comes true or not. You guys know my prediction for night 2 is the new bloodline is going to form with Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, John Cena, The Rock, and Travis Scott, as Seth Rollins helps John Cena win the Undisputed Championship from the American Nightmare. But my, oh my, I said WrestleMania was going to be the WrestleMania of turns, And this is how we get started here. I was right. Seth Rollins turns on Roman Reigns and CM Punk. And the next question is, what is next? And I am going to find this Seth Rollins Paul Heyman pairing very interesting because a lot like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, we know, is one of the best talkers in WWE. Seth Rollins does not need Paul Heyman as his mouthpiece, but Seth Rollins is one of the most decorated wrestlers in the history of this company. Over the last 10 years, outside of the Tribal Chief, nobody has had more success than the visionary, I would argue. And so he was Brock Lesnar's advocate. He was the wise man to the tribal chief. What will he be to the visionary? I thought one of the most insane stats of the night, by the way, was that Roman Reigns is tied with John Cena and Edge, and only behind Triple H in WrestleMania wins of all time. I couldn't believe that. It was mind numbing. And now we get to see next year what happens with Roman Reigns in WrestleMania when he will main event, I predict, for the 11th time. WrestleMania 42. I do think one of the main events of SummerSlam this year will be Roman Reigns and CM Punk one on one. Their issues are not resolved. They're going to blame each other for losing Roman's wise man, CM Punk's best friend. That feud culminates in their one on one battle at SummerSlam, I predict. But that triple threat, a lot of people said same night one. It definitely made night one better overall. I thought night one, was maybe a five or a six. Without the main event, with the main event, to me, it's like a seven or eight. I thought it was absolutely incredible. I thought all three guys absolutely killed it. CM Punk had one of the best entrances in WrestleMania history, by the way, with the video package to go along with Living Color playing him down to the ring. And, let's see what happens on night two. So now we are here at night two of WrestleMania 41, and night two kicked off with a triple threat match for the Women's World Championship between the champion Io Sky, the challengers Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair. Now, this match was all about Io Sky obviously being the third wheel. That was the build that went into this match. They even did it at the start of the contest where, Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, they're talking to each other across the ring, and Io Sky is in the middle, and Rhea and Bianca try to put their hands up to Io. But Io obviously blocks it, and so that then leads us to the heavy artillery that was thrown in this matchup, where really the whole bout was about could Bianca Belair hit her KOD. Rhea Ripley ended up hitting a riptide on Bianca Belair in one of the early moments where Bianca did kick out at two. There was a moment where Rhea tried to go for her riptide avalanche style on the top rope to Io Sky. Io was able to counter it. There was a moment where Bianca Belair did her stomping, marching to the stomping suplex to Io, but again was unable to hook that KOD, and the match really turned when Bianca Belair went, or excuse me, Rhea Ripley went for her avalanche. As I mentioned, riptide on Io Sky. Io was able to counter, do the Hurricane Rana, set her up for the over the top moonsault, and Rhea Ripley would wheelbarrow Io Sky right there on the top rope. Bianca Belair was able to take advantage, hit Rhea Ripley with a KOD, but as she went for the cover, you could see her eyes sort of moving to the top rope. Io was right there for the moonsault. Bang. One, two, three, and again, the whole storyline of this match was Io Sky was going to be the third wheel. I thought that this would lead to Bianca Belair potentially turning heel, winning the Women's World Championship, because I don't get how they just moved Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill away from each other for Jade Cargill to do this feud with Naomi. It made no sense to me. I also didn't understand why you would hotshot the belt to Io Sky a month before WrestleMania for her to only drop the championship, so I get that as well. Again, I am one of those people that don't think Io Sky is the best wrestler in the world. I don't think she's the best character in the world. I thought her WWE Women's Championship run as a member of Damage Control was flat out boring. And last year, she lost the title to Bayley. This year, with the Raw Women's World Championship, she defends it successfully against Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. It'll be interesting to see now. A lot like Gunther that I mentioned in the World Heavyweight Championship picture on Monday nights, Rhea Ripley has been a staple in the women's world title picture for years in WWE. So, where does she go now without a championship? And does this Jade Cargill, Naomi, Bianca Belair storyline end here? Then we had just an insanely physical Sin City street fight between Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. These two culminating a year-long feud that started last year at WrestleMania 40 when Damian Priest cashed in his Money in the Bank contract on the Scottish Warrior and became the world champion. My only disappointment about this match was that they did not go to the eye injury that Drew McIntyre had during this feud with the eye patch. I thought Damian Priest should have focused on that more. They did not use any, Las Vegas dice or poker chips or anything like that to make it feel like a Sin City street fight. It was just a very physical encounter, featured a lot of steel step shots from both men. Featured a moment where Damian Priest gave Drew McIntyre not only a choke slam, but then a South of Evan choke slam. Damian Priest getting his bell rung with a Future Shock DDT on a large portion of the steel steps. But this match really did turn when Drew McIntyre sent Damian Priest flying. Fruit Oot Abel's on the outside, which led then Drew McIntyre to put Damian Priest's head inside a steel chair, which is what he was trying to do the entire match, and Claymore Damian Priest's head in this steel chair into the turnbuckle, which Damian Priest introduced. And Drew McIntyre, for the first time in a long time, finally does go over in a feud. He does get his victory. And now, again, very interesting to see Damian Priest now, assumingly done with Drew McIntyre, done with the Judgment Day stuff, which we'll get into here in a minute. Where does he go? And then for Drew McIntyre, after finally winning a feud, but now the question is, does he go back to Jey Uso? Does he go back to Monday Night Raw in his pursuit of the World Heavyweight Championship? A championship belt that he has been after since losing it at WrestleMania 40, as I mentioned a year ago. And then we get into what we all thought it was going to be an absolute car crash of an Intercontinental Championship match between Braun Breaker, Penta, and the Judgment Day. And they really did build this up great where Dominic and Finn Balor were working together. Then all of a sudden, Finn Balor is alone in the ring. He's against the ropes. Dominic Mysterio sees the opportunity, goes for a 619 on Finn Balor. Finn Balor was able to catch him and the Judgment Day dissolved. Went from there. Carlito came down to ringside. Penta, it is Penta driver on Dominic Mysterio. Braun Breaker was also spearing people all over the place. Carlito was able to pull Braun Breaker also out of the ring, which led to one of the most incredible moments of the entire weekend when Braun Breaker ran from the Spanish announce table to the main announce table and speared Carlito through that table. And now, with the unpredictable badass cleaning out, Braun Breaker, though, took his eyes off the ball one time after trying to stop Dom. And Finn Balor was able to stop Dom from delivering a splash on the top rope. He had a swing blade to Braun Breaker. He hit the dropkick in the corner. He even hit the coup de grace on Braun Breaker. Thought he was going to win the Intercontinental Championship. And bang! Huge splash from Dominic Mysterio off the top rope. He's able to hook the leg of Finn Balor. 1, 2, 3. The Judgment Day is officially broken up, and babyface Dominic Mysterio is here. Dom got a huge reaction throughout the entire match. Now, I thought they were going to keep Dom the heel, and maybe that is still the plan. Is Dom be the heel and reside with Liv and Raquel? But Liv and Raquel, as we'll talk about, are no longer champions, and Finn Balor is no longer a champion. But we've seen the descent between Finn Balor and Liv and Raquel. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Liv and Raquel also become baby faces here and align with Dom, and Finn Balor goes out on his own. and we'll see where Carlito wise. We'll see when JD McDonough wise when he returns from his devastating injury. I think we could see a scenario where babyface Dom and babyface Carlito against Finn Balor and JD McDonough as sort of this third Judgment Day act comes to an end. But not only is Braun Breaker going to be a huge star in this match, not only is Penta going to eventually be a big star, he really showcased in this match, but for Dom, a man who was booed relentlessly, and I was one of those people, whether it was on TV or in the crowd, and those boos for Dominic Mysterio, folks, were not piped in. If you were at any wrestling event with Dom involved over the last 3 years, he would generally got the shit booed out of him. We in Cleveland one time started the Dom's a pussy chant, which got over in some arenas. But Dominic Mysterio has organically gotten over here as a babyface, and I'm excited to see what Intercontinental Champion Dominic Mysterio does. Then we had Randy Orton come out and a callback to his old 2002 gear, the vintage blue tights for the Viper. And after saying that someone is going to get hit with the most dangerous letters in sports entertainment, RKO, say his name, and he appears. Joe Hendry. Um, I was a little bit disappointed there was no Nick Aldis on this show to at least make a formal announcement. I would have not gone the way of announcing a segment with Randy Orton coming up, issuing an open challenge. I would have just had Randy Orton's entrance music all of a sudden hit and Randy Orton come down to the ring maybe a little bit later in the show, right before the main event, and say, "Hey, I haven't had my match yet at WrestleMania. Who's gonna come down?" And then maybe he says Joe Hendry, and out comes his name. I thought that would have been cool pop. In the end, though, the TNA Impact World Champion got his moment, got an RKO from Randy Orton. Randy Orton acknowledged him to the crowd, then delivered one more RKO. It was a really cool moment for the WWE TNA partnership. A really cool moment for Joe, even though we got the shortest match of all on WrestleMania weekend. Just, you know, it was what it needed to be, in my opinion. Short, quick, get Randy Orton on the card. It was unfortunate what happened to Kevin Owens, but if you want to save the debut of Rusev potentially or Aleister Black, and you don't want Nick Aldis in the ring, I thought this was a very interesting call and a good decision here to have TNA Spotlight on WrestleMania. I never thought you would see the day where the TNA Impact World Champion would appear as the TNA Impact World Champion at WrestleMania. It just shows what strides WWE has made as a company. Then we got AJ Styles and Logan Paul. And I said going into it that, listen, these guys obviously they didn't have much of a story. But I thought that the ring work that these two guys put in, I mean, Logan Paul has barely had. I said he hadn't had a bad match, you know, going into this WrestleMania. Logan Paul always delivers, and this was a fine match. But the weird thing about AJ Styles is, as great as he is and as phenomenal as AJ Styles is, to me, it seems like his worst matches always come on the biggest stage. Shinsuke Nakamura, Randy Orton, Edge, Chris Jericho. I think his two best WrestleMania matches by far were the Boneyard match, which was the cinematic match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 36, and then Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 33. Ironically, two of the most veteran workers, two guys that did not work full time at the time. Those are guys that AJ Styles I thought had the best in ring work with, as opposed to like an Edge or a Jericho or even LA Knight. The match was good last year with LA Knight, not great. They had Logan Paul's entourage come down and try to cause interference with the breast knocks. Karrion Kross then intercepted it, and it looked like Karrion Kross was trying to give AJ Styles the breast knocks. We know Karrion Kross's history of trying to turn AJ Styles heel. I think it's going to work out eventually. As I mentioned, I could see AJ Styles becoming one of the very first, if not the first challenger, maybe outside of Drew McIntyre, as the number one contender for Jey Uso's World Heavyweight Championship, the same way he was the American Nightmare a year ago. And then we had the return of Becky Lynch, which once Bayley went out with the injury, you knew it was going to be Becky Lynch, or they wouldn't have pulled Bayley off the WrestleMania card for nothing. You knew Lyra and Becky Lynch were going to become the new Women's Tag Team Champions. Becky Lynch is back. For the second time in 4 years, she returns at the same stadium she did at SummerSlam 2021 in Allegiant Stadium. She once again wins a championship. Though I think this will be a different Becky Lynch. You know, her daughter's older now. She's 4 or 5 years old. She was even with her at the press conference at WrestleMania Sunday. I don't think this is going to be the Becky Lynch that's going to be in the main world title picture. I think WWE, this WrestleMania to me was all about the younger stars. It was more about the storytelling. I mean, you think about the people that were on this card, right? Tiffany Stratton, Braun Breaker, Penta, Jacob Fatu, LA Knight, Joe Hendry. Um, even your Liv Morgan, right? Your Bianca Belairs, your Io Skies, your Ripleys, people that are in the prime of their careers, as opposed to Becky, who's in the prime of her career 5, 6 years ago. So again, even a girl like Lyra Valkyria, pretty new. There was a lot of people making their WrestleMania debut this year. So a way to get Lyra over. I'm very interested to see here where this Bayley character goes. Bayley wrestled Lyra Valkyria for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Now, Lyra is also Lyra two belts, the way Becky Lynch was at WrestleMania 35. Again, I'm more interested in the Bayley heel turn moving forward. I think Bayley could take the Women's Intercontinental Championship off of Lyra and be a great working heel the way she was with the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship in 2020/2021 back in the day. I think she could have a very similar run and elevate the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Then we get to the main event. And everybody's pissed off because Travis Scott came down. And before I get to that, which to me, again, we're only in the third inning here, folks. We're playing the long game here. And John Cena came out to the ring with all black, no Tron, no nothing. It looked very strange and very weird. And I got to tell you what, for John Cena's last WrestleMania entrance ever, it might have been his worst WrestleMania entrance ever, which is obviously what they were going for. But Cody Rhodes, who came out of the mask and, got the biker gang and the special entrance and all that, the story here was Cody Rhodes was getting over early. Um, you know, he was punching Cena. Cena was rocked. Cena was out of the block. Cena can't wrestle, yada, yada, yada. But eventually, John Cena was playing his greatest hits. He hit an AA on Cody. He hit a five knuckle shuffle on Cody. He hit an avalanche AA on Cody. Cody Rhodes was still able to survive. And Cody Rhodes, would deliver a couple Cody cutters, a disaster kick to Cena. Cena would kick out of those. But there was a ref bump spot, and Cody Rhodes was at the crossroads on John Cena, and Chet Patton, the official, was out. And then a frustrated Cody Rhodes would obviously then lead to Travis Scott. And they made a good point on commentary where Michael Cole, who after saying "God damn it," which I thought was hilarious when Fiend hit through the air, said that he was sent there by the final boss, The Rock, which told you The Rock was not showing up to this match. And obviously Travis Scott used his power, used his distraction. There was another spot where Chet Patton got in the ring after Cena once again took advantage with a Travis Scott distraction. Another AA. Cody was able to kick out. Then Cody was able to hit Cena with another crossroads. He brought Travis Scott in the ring, or they're so invited him, hit Travis Scott with a crossroads. But Cena had the undisputed WWE Championship in hand. And when Cody caught him, Cena was trying to play the heel and beg, "No, I'm a good guy. Don't do this to me, Cody." Cody's babyface instincts kicked in. Boom, a low blow. Championship belt to the skull. Chad Patton re-enters the ring. 1, 2, 3. And new, undisputed WWE champion, the American Night, or excuse me, the 17th time world champion, defeats the American Nightmare, John Cena, my generation's childhood hero is a 17-time world heavyweight champion. And I know many people felt underwhelmed with this, but again, I will reiterate, folks, The Rock had not shown up since WrestleMania, or excuse me, since the Elimination Chamber. I'm tired this morning, folks. It was a long weekend. It was WrestleMania weekend. I'm just trying to get through this, okay? They did not mention The Rock. Mostly brought this build because The Rock was never showing up to WrestleMania. And flashback, I should have thought about it in hindsight. We're just in the third inning here. And John Cena being a heel and this chicken shit heel, and he can't wrestle, and he ruined wrestling. What a better way to ruin wrestling than to have a non wrestler, an artist in Travis Scott, be the one to screw over Cody Rhodes and not The Rock. The Rock is still involved in the storyline. John Cena said the reason why he sold his soul was to win his 17th world championship at all costs. And that's what he did. And that is the storyline beat they are playing. Cody Rhodes did not sell his soul. John Cena did. And that's why John Cena is a 17-time world champion. Now, again, do they go back to Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam and they have the rematch and Cody finally goes over in the first two-night SummerSlam? I don't know. Because John Cena, does he turn back into a babyface? That's a good question, folks. I don't know. Because John Cena, this is the character that John Cena has seemingly been wanting to play for 2 decades. Because he was booed. He was told he can't wrestle. He was told he wears Fruity Pebbles. He was told to go away. And now that he's in his final act, everybody wants to run around and pretend like they were John Cena fans for years, and John Cena's not having it. John Cena's taking L's, right? Going into WrestleMania 41, he hadn't won a one-on-one match at WrestleMania in a decade. So desperate times call for desperate measures, and whether it's by hook or by crook, John Cena, the 17-time world champion, and he said to tune into Monday Night Raw tonight to see how he ruined wrestling. And again, I think we are only in the third inning here. Now, I must say, friend of the show, big wrestling fan, you guys know him by the name of Jalen Sandvik. Jalen Sandvik called me absolutely drunk out of his mind last night, and he said, Brandon, I finally understand what you're talking about. It's the story. It's John Cena doing anything after 20 years of utter loyalty, respect, never give up, never taking a shortcut. It's the story of Cody Rhodes trying to do the same thing that John Cena would have done 2 decades ago. And Jalen loved it. He was absolutely out of his mind over it. Listen, I know some people are disappointed by this WrestleMania as a whole. I would say the two best matches were, the main event of night one. I thought Reigns, Rollins, Punk. I thought that was a top 5 WrestleMania match of all time. And then I think Io, Rhea, Bianca had the best match on night two. I thought night two was overall better than night one. I thought it had better overall wrestling. But this WrestleMania, even though we had John Cena in the main event, and we did have Randy Orton on this show, it was a lot of youth, as I mentioned. You go back to even opening this show with main event Jey Uso finally getting his moment against a guy like Gunther. Again, we have guys like Braun Breaker, Penta, Dominic Mysterio, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Io Sky, Tiffany Stratton. Um, LA Knight, Jacob Fatu, Ray Phoenix, even. It was a very changing of the guard WrestleMania. A lot of these guys in their first WrestleMania, and I thought that that's kind of what they were going for. And this WrestleMania, night one, I mentioned he was very predictable. John Cena, in my opinion, defeating Cody Rhodes was very predictable. Seth Rollins turning on CM Punk and Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman was very predictable. This WrestleMania was not so much about the in-ring work. It's about what comes next. It's about the storyline after this. It's about how do we get to Raw? How do we get to SmackDown? How do we get to SummerSlam? And then how do we get to WrestleMania 42? Think about this. If I gave you this WrestleMania 41 card a year ago and told you, hey, after WrestleMania 40, The main event of night one of WrestleMania 41 was going to be Roman Reigns against CM Punk against Seth Rollins in a triple threat match. You could have said, yeah, because Punk and Seth's relationship, and obviously they were supposed to battle at WrestleMania 40, and because of the Roman Reigns losing the championship, totally, I could see that if The Rock is not going to be available and we're not going to have Roman Reigns versus The Rock, which we all kind of thought was the direction that they were going to go, or Cody Rhodes versus The Rock. If I would have told you at the end of WrestleMania 40, hey folks, the main event of night two of WrestleMania 41 was going to be the American Nightmare defending his undisputed championship that he's had for a year against the heel John Cena. And Travis Scott was going to be the one to interfere and cost Cody Rhodes the championship. Nobody could have predicted that. So, in my opinion, it just goes to show that we got a long way to go now from WrestleMania 41 to WrestleMania 42. And with that, thank you for listening to my WrestleMania 41 recap. We'll be back tomorrow breaking down the Raw after WrestleMania and everything NBA playoffs up to this point. Have a great day and peace. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.